The hero falls. Cinder Prime shimmered like a jewel in the darkness, its surface carved into gleaming domes of glass and chrome. Designated a neutral diplomatic zone by the Galactic Concord, it was where enemies met to speak instead of fight. It was where peace was supposed to begin. Captain Elias Ward stood at the center of the summit chamber, a man forged in the crucible of war and tempered by an unshakable moral code. The black and silver uniform of the United Terran Systems clung to his tall frame. The rows of ribbons on his chest mute testimony to a life lived on the edge of annihilation. Gray flecked his temples, and a long scar cut down his left cheek, a relic from the siege of Orton Reach. Every species in the chamber knew the story behind it. Many owed their lives to him. He didn't speak yet. Instead, his dark eyes studied the semicircular hall, where emissaries of the Galactic Empire sat behind their polished obsidian desks. The Empire's delegation was led by High Executor Varnjal, a Luthri noble with scaled, blue-gray skin and a voice like dripping acid. "You are quiet, Captain Ward," Varn said, lips curled in what passed for a Luthri smile. "Is this humanity's famed diplomacy?" Silence and scowls. Elias stepped forward, slow and deliberate. Words are cheap in a room filled with tyrants. Murmurs echoed through the chamber, but none dared challenge him. Not openly. Not while the man who had personally commanded fleets at Arcani's Drift was present. Not while Elias Ward, the butcher of Bellatrix to some, the shield of soul to others, stood unflinching before them. "Let's not waste more breath," Elias continued. "You want a ceasefire? So do we. You recognize humanity now has equal territory, equal influence, and equal might. Good. Then we sign, and we stop killing each other." Varnjal sneered. "Perhaps. But peace is not always built on equality, Captain. Sometimes it requires sacrifice." The words barely left his mouth before chaos erupted. A piercing hum shattered the air, energy weapons discharging at point-blank range. A red beam lanced from the crowd, straight through Elias's chest. He staggered, once his mouth parting in silent shock. His knees buckled, and he collapsed to the polished floor. Blood spread beneath him, dark against the mirrored surface. Silence devoured the room. Then screaming. Human guards returned fire instantly. 2 Empire delegates fell before being teleported away in a shimmer of light. The rest retreated behind plasma shields, retreating under the cover of legal immunity and panic. But none of that mattered anymore. Elias Ward, the most revered soldier in human history, lay dead, assassinated on a neutral world, executed in a room meant for peace. 15 minutes later, the broadcast circled every corner of known space. The footage was clean, taken from security feeds, then mirrored on thousands of media channels across human systems. Billions watched Elias's final breath. Billions saw the smug grin on Varnjal's face as he was escorted out. The Empire's official statement came swiftly. "Captain Ward's death is regrettable. The act was the decision of radical elements acting without our authority. The Empire remains committed to peace. They offer condolences. No names. No consequences. They underestimated who they were dealing with." Back on Earth, in a sealed command chamber deep beneath Geneva, Admiral Petra Langston stood motionless before a massive holographic projection. Elias's body, already recovered, was being transported to a military cruiser. His flag draped over the coffin. His chest still smoldered. "Is it confirmed?" she asked. Her voice was quiet, controlled. "Yes, Admiral," said her aide, his eyes hollow. "The beam originated from an embedded Imperial agent. There's no doubt. The Empire killed him." Petra turned to the console before her. No further words were spoken. She placed her hand on the biometric scanner and said 2 words. "Protocol null." Across 1,000 stars, across military hubs and frontier outposts, across AI networks and quantum-encrypted comms, humanity stopped. 15 minutes after Elias Ward fell, the silence ended. Across every major Imperial border, hyperspace gates lit up like stars being born. Human fleets, long rumored, often feared, emerged. Not in chaos, not in revenge. In perfect, terrifying synchronization. A single word echoed across the command decks of each battle group. Encircle. 15 minutes of silence. The stars held their breath. 15 minutes had passed since Elias Ward's assassination. 15 long minutes of absolute, unnatural silence from humanity. The Galactic Empire interpreted it as weakness. A species in mourning. A fractured people trying to comprehend the death of their most revered hero. Their state-run channels aired commentary laced with veiled glee. Analysts claimed that humanity would not risk total war, that they had too much to lose. But in those 15 minutes, humanity wasn't mourning. They were preparing. In a secure orbital station above Luton's Gate, Fleet Marshal Amina Solari stood before the largest collection of warships ever assembled in UTS history. 50 dreadnoughts, 100 cruisers, carriers, stealth frigates, drone nests, all powered, fueled, and battle-ready. Her voice came through fleet-wide comms like a blade drawn in the dark. The lion has fallen. The gate is open. We execute protocol null. Confirm status. From every warship, from every captain, the response echoed. Confirmed. War status, silent. Target, Imperial systems. Priority, encirclement. No rage. No chance. Just cold coordination. Within seconds, the fleet split. Half jumped to pre-calculated coordinates along the Empire's outer sectors. The other half scattered across known trade and supply routes. They didn't fire. They didn't broadcast. They just appeared. At the Terran cybernetics core on Mars, an artificial intelligence known as Echo 9 activated its secondary protocol for the first time since its creation. Echo 9's sole task: neutralize all Imperial electronic infrastructure without a single detectable breach. In 47 seconds, it slipped into the Empire's deep net. By the 13th minute, Imperial command relays flickered. Emergency broadcasts failed to send. Naval formations couldn't access real-time data. Civilian traffic collapsed into chaos as NAV systems desynchronized. No source, no trace, just a whisper in code. He fell. Across frontier colonies, in sleepy mining towns and hydro farms, ordinary civilians stopped what they were doing. Some had served under Elias. Some had only heard stories. All of them felt it. A seismic shift, like the soul of their species had been pierced. And so they moved. Retired engineers reopened sealed factories. Ex-Marines volunteered at local garrisons. Even school children participated, reciting the names of fallen Terran heroes as volunteers stitched fresh banners. No one asked them to. They simply knew. Inside the Imperial High Command, Executor Varnjal watched a tactical map with a bemused sneer. Dozens of Terran fleets blinking into position across Imperial space. They've encircled our border systems, his intelligence officer muttered. Exactly 15 minutes after Ward's death. All fleet movements identical, within nanoseconds of each other. That's impossible, Varnjal hissed. No species can coordinate like that without violating temporal laws. The officer paled. Unless they've already prepared this. Years ago. Waiting. That was when the message came. Simple. Direct. Translated across all languages. Broadcast through hijacked comms. Written into the stars by orbital projectors. Return Elias Ward's killers. Or we end you. The room went dead. Meanwhile, Colonel Rio Ward, daughter of Elias Ward, sat in the command seat of the Vigilant Resolve, a Terran Special Forces flagship cloaked in dark space above the Imperial outpost of Tel Derek. She hadn't cried. Not yet. Instead, she stared at the screen, her father's name etched in red, his final location burned into her memory. Target lock established, her comms officer reported. Tel Derek control station is exposed. Shall we engage? Rhea shook her head. Not yet. No casualties unless necessary. We're not here to slaughter. We're here to show them what restraint looks like. But ma'am, I said wait. Across the bridge, the crew obeyed. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. Rhea didn't carry her father's name. She embodied it. The Empire's first mistake had been arrogance. Their second was underestimating the human soul. They believed humanity would rage blindly. They expected riots, screams, scattered retaliation. Instead, humanity gave them silence. Weaponized silence. A silence that coordinated a multi-sector blockade in under 15 minutes. A silence that choked every hyperspace corridor leading into the core systems of the Empire. A silence that, in its stillness, roared. Above the world where Elias died, the skies darkened. Cinder Prime's orbital ring, once filled with neutral ships and cargo haulers, now brimmed with UTS dreadnoughts. Each one sat in total silence, weapons cold but charged. No demands, no opening fire, only presence. And presence was enough. On the surface, the Imperial diplomatic staff, now guests of the Terran honor guard, watched in growing terror as the skies flickered with unnatural light. Massive human vessels moved like chess pieces, every formation textbook perfect. Someone whispered, "They've surrounded us." Someone else whispered, "No, they've surrounded everything." Back in the UTS war chamber on Earth, Admiral Petra Langston finally spoke to her assembled command council. "Let them call us monsters," she said. "Let them write songs of fear. We gave them peace. Elias gave them peace. They answered with blood." She looked around. "Now we answer in kind. Without cruelty. Without chaos. With unity." She turned back to the star map, where Imperial sectors began to flicker red one by one. 15 minutes was all it took, she said quietly. And then she gave the final command. "Commence the encirclement." Encirclement. The map of the known galaxy looked like a noose. Red arcs marked the deployment of UTS fleets, and each day they thickened, tightening, unrelenting. 23 major Imperial sectors surrounded. 8 supply corridors severed. 6 shipyards silenced. Every strategic choke point now bore the mark of Terran presence. No bombs had fallen. No invasions launched. But the Empire could no longer breathe. Inside the Imperial Grand Chamber on the core world of Velarex, panic spread like fire behind golden curtains. "This is absurd," Counselor Threx bellowed, slamming a clawed fist onto the table. "Where are our defenses? Our allies? Why haven't the humans attacked yet?" Executor Varnjal's expression twisted into something between confusion and fear. "Because they don't need to." He tapped the holomap. Entire sectors flickered offline. Trade routes gone. Civilian transport hubs disabled. Long-range comms jammed. "They've isolated us without firing a single round," he muttered. "They could already be inside our walls, and we wouldn't know it." "They're bluffing," Counselor Serena hissed. "It's psychological warfare." Varn shook his head. "No, it's discipline." On the bridge of the TSV Dauntless, Admiral Marcus Rowe watched his screens in silence. His battle group now blocked the Raxan Corridor, a major trade artery linking 5 vital Imperial worlds. Behind him, hundreds of Terran ships held formation, drifting like steel ghosts in the black. "Status?" he asked. Imperial Navy attempted to probe the blockade. "We disabled their lead cruiser." "No casualties," his XO replied. Rowe nodded. "Send them a message." "What should I say?" Rowe's voice was cold steel. "Tell them, this is Restraint. Don't test its limits." In the mid-rim farming world of Elteruin, Imperial citizens watched with growing dread as Terran medical shuttles descended from orbit, delivering food, supplies, and aid. At first, locals feared occupation. Instead, they were met with rations, engineers, and field medics. No speeches, no propaganda, just quiet, efficient assistance. "They treat us like people," an old farmer whispered. "They treat us better than our own government," someone replied. Above Cinder Prime, where Elias Ward had been murdered, the UTS Honor Guard established a forward command platform, a sleek fortress ring named Sentinel's Oath. It was positioned directly over the summit site, where Imperial flags had already been removed. At its heart stood Colonel Rhea Ward. She wore a black combat uniform with no rank insignia, no ribbons. Just her father's name stitched across her chest. Her eyes had the same fire, the same stillness before the storm. "Status of the planetary net?" she asked. "All clear, Colonel. No Empire vessels remain within Cinder airspace. Civilian traffic compliant." Local garrison has disbanded. Rhea nodded. Any retaliation? None. They're still stunned. Good. She turned to the wide viewport and stared down at the marble ruins below. You'll get your justice, Dad, she whispered. But not with fury. With precision. Elsewhere, whispers spread across Imperial military channels. Unrest rippled through outer sectors. Generals refused orders. Provincial fleets hesitated to engage human forces, fearing complete annihilation. Some units went dark entirely. Then came the defections. On Karan's Eye, an Imperial dreadnought turned its guns inward, mutinying in favor of open surrender. On Vel Tarsa, a planetary governor transmitted a message directly to UTS forces. We don't want war. We want justice. Tell us what must be done. In the heart of Earth's military command center, Admiral Petra Langston convened her top strategists. They stood around a red-lit map of the Empire, now strangled and unstable. Our objective remains unchanged, Langston said. We are not here to conquer. We are here to force clarity. Then why wait? Asked General Kwan, her tone sharp. We can decapitate their capital tonight. Langston looked her in the eye. Because Elias Ward died for peace, she said. We show them that humanity is not just power. We are purpose. They must know we could break them, and chose not to. That message was sent loud and clear. On the 5th day of the encirclement, a new broadcast lit up every Imperial system. A hollow image of Elias Ward, his final speech from a year before. Peace isn't weakness, he had said, voice calm and strong. It's the hardest path a species can walk. It requires trust. And if that trust is broken, we must answer, not in rage, but in unity. Not in vengeance, but in justice. Let humanity be remembered, not just for how we fight, but for what we fight for. Below the message, a simple banner unfurled. Return his killers. Face your truth, or face your end. In the Imperial Palace, Varn Jal watched the screen darken, his face pale. They're not coming for territory, he muttered. No, said his aide. They're coming for conscience. The reckoning. Executor Varn Jal never expected to see the war come to his doorstep without a single shot fired. He stood in his private chamber, lights dimmed, as the final message replayed on a loop, Elias Ward's voice echoing like a ghost through the room. The same voice that had once stood before the Galactic Concord and demanded peace. The same voice he had silenced. Only, it hadn't been silenced. It had become a rallying cry. The Empire was crumbling from within, not because of bombs, not because of fleet engagements, but because every citizen could now see the lie. Humanity hadn't invaded, it had surrounded, not to dominate but to expose. Every hyperspace gate locked down, every supply chain strangled, every communication channel filtered, redirected, then folded into a single question. Where are Elias Ward's murderers? And no answer came. Until Derek, where one of the assassins had taken refuge in a remote intelligence outpost, Colonel Rhea Ward finally moved. The vigilant resolve dropped its cloak above the icy cliffs of the southern hemisphere. Drop pods streaked through the atmosphere. Terran special forces landed without a word. The compound was silent within 9 minutes. No casualties, no prolonged firefight, no broadcast. Only one high-value prisoner extracted, bound, and placed into cryostasis. The first thread pulled. News of the extraction spread like plasma fire. 3 days later, the second assassin, a Lutheran intelligence officer, was found by his own government, dragged from a pleasure ship attempting to flee to neutral space. His arrest wasn't justice. It was fear, a desperate offering to the silent giant watching from every border. And finally the third, the one who had fired the shot, a mercenary agent embedded in the diplomatic delegation, officially disavowed, unofficially protected. Until now, on day 12 of the encirclement, the Imperial Council broke. A signal came through to Earth's high command, not from a fleet, not from a world, from Velarax Prime, the Imperial capital. A live transmission. Executor Varn Jal appeared on the main screen, face worn, eyes sunken with sleepless nights. Behind him, Rows of Imperial officials sat rigid in shame. He didn't speak with arrogance anymore. He bowed. "To the people of the United Terran Systems," he said, voice hoarse, "and to the daughter of Elias Ward, we submit to inquiry. The 3 men responsible for the assassination have been identified. 2 are in custody. The 3rd has been executed by Imperial law. We offer no excuse, only submission. We request negotiations." Silence followed. Then, from the Terran side, a reply. Admiral Petra Langston appeared on screen, eyes hard but calm. "This was never about conquest. You killed a symbol. You broke the rules of peace. The galaxy needed to see that such actions demand consequence. We are satisfied." One final message was transmitted. "Encirclement disengaged. Watch closely. Next time we won't surround. We'll descend." One by one, the red rings on the galactic map vanished. Terran fleets pulled back in perfect formations. No debris left behind. No planet scorched. Just a void filled with awe, fear, and something far more dangerous to tyrants: hope. Back on Cinder Prime, the summit hall had been rebuilt. Not in marble and chrome this time, but in black stone with a single monument at the center. A statue of Elias Ward, standing tall, his hand outstretched, not in aggression, but in open invitation. His scarred face captured in solemn stillness. Etched at the base were words in dozens of languages. "He came in peace. You killed him. We remembered." Colonel Rio Ward stood beneath it, silent. She hadn't smiled since the day her father died. She didn't now, but she felt something shift. Not closure, not healing, just clarity. A Terran flag waved gently above her, flanked by banners of the other galactic species who had joined the Terran cause in solidarity. Former enemies, new allies. Some stood with her now, in silence. A Thalary priest, who once lost her colony to human bombers. A Tursk general, who had faced Elias across enemy lines and lived because Ward had ordered a ceasefire instead of annihilation. They had come, not to honor a soldier, but to honor what he represented. A calm came through to Ria's ear. "Colonel, the last fleet has returned to Sol orbit. All systems report no loss of life during Operation Encircle." She nodded once. "Have the prisoners been transferred?" "Yes, ma'am. They'll face joint tribunal sentencing under galactic law, supervised by neutral Terran and Imperial observers." Ria let out a slow breath. The job was done. Justice hadn't been loud. It had been surgical, coordinated, human. Later, as the sun set over Cinder Prime, Ria sat alone on a bench near the statue. She whispered, "You were right, Dad. Peace isn't weakness." She looked up. "It's a warning.